Welcome to the cinematic camera movements using drones, where I will be talking about some of my favorite cinematic aerial moves. A lot of these movements are going to be very similar to the ones I just talked about in the glide cam section, except now we're doing it from the air. Now, when working with drones, the most effective, most cinematic shots require two people, a drone pilot and a camera operator. As a cinematographer, I am the camera operator, and so I hire people on like Cinechopper or my buddy Colton Sandoval to come fly the drone because they specialize in that skill. And as the director, I will tell them the flight patterns I want them to fly, and then I operate the movements of the camera that then combine to create cinematic movements. Now, I'm not going to go super into depth about flying drones. If you want to learn more about how to get into the drone game, my buddy Chris Newman at Cinechopper University teaches a very similar course to mine that tells you everything you need to know about flying drones. So go check that out at cinechopperuniversity.com if you want more information. Cinematic move number one is the push-in. This is where the drone pilot flies straight forward, and as long as he does his job correctly, the camera operator shouldn't have to move anything after he's framed the shot up. As you can see, the drone pilot is moving straight forward, and me as the camera operator doesn't have to do anything as long as they're flying in a straight line. A way to mix up your push-in shots is by incorporating a slight drop or a slight rise to the drone movement, giving it a slightly different look. And here's an example of me pushing in until I reach my subject and then coming to a stop as if I'm just on a normal camera from the ground. Other things you can do to make your push-ins more interesting is having the camera operator slowly tilt up as the drone pushes in. I like to use this move when I want to reveal something, so I'll start with the camera down and I'll slowly bring it up to reveal my subject. The opposite of that can also be done by having the camera operator tilt down as the pilot moves the drone forward. And here's a few examples of times when I've used that cinematic movement. I like using it when there's people going over cliffs or ledges, like in bungee jumping or cliff diving. It's a great way to give the effect as if you are jumping with them. The next movement is the pull out. Same as the push in, but we are now moving away from the subject. And again, the operator shouldn't have to do much after framing up the shot. Here's a cool shot we got, pretending as if we were on the ground and then slowly pulling away. And all of a sudden you realize we're filming from a drone as we reveal the entire yard and landscape behind the home. Here's a couple more examples of times when I've used the pull out. Again, the camera operator doesn't have to do much on these as long as the drone pilot is flying a straight line. On this pullout, I slowly tilted up towards the end to reveal the cityscape in the back, and on this one I slowly tilted down as my pilot was rising so as to keep my subjects in frame. Here's a pullout with a left to right move, and as the camera operator I have to keep one consistent move of panning the camera to the right to keep the house in frame. And the key to making these shots look smooth is having a drone pilot who's flying smooth and a camera operator who's operating smooth. The third move is the parallax, and just like we talked about in the glide cam section, you have the drone moving one direction and the camera is panning the opposite direction. So here's an example in Panama of Chris flying left to right and I'm panning the camera right to left to keep my subject in frame, and it gives the illusion like the cityscape behind them is moving as they stay in the same spot in the frame of the video. Here's some real estate examples. Again, the drone is pushing from left to right and I as the camera operator am panning from right to left, creating the illusion like our subject isn't moving that much while the background moves around it. The next move is tracking. This is when you have a subject in frame and you can either choose to follow track by getting behind, lead track by getting in front, or side track by getting on the side. So here's a few examples of follow tracking subjects where we stay slightly behind so you can see everything in front of them. And here's some examples of lead tracking where we stay in front of our subject and track them as they come towards us. And then here's some examples of side tracking. And on this one I start out side tracking and eventually cut across to a follow track. And on this one I'm straight overhead tracking. The next movement is to have your drone rise while tilting your camera down at the same time, and the opposite of that, to drop the drone down while tilting the camera up. So here's a few examples of times when I've used this move. It gives a very similar look to the parallax, except now instead of going from left to rights and right to lefts, we're going from up to down and down to ups. And the last shot I want to talk about is what Chris Newman calls the twist and shout, which is when your drone pilot raises up and your camera operator, while looking straight down, will pan the camera left to right, creating a twisting effect. So as you can see, there's an infinite amount of variations and combinations of movements you can do with the drone. Hopefully that gives you a few ideas to get your brain thinking of creative moves to do with the drone to make your shots look more cinematic. That is it for aerial movements. If you guys have any further questions, please let me know.